Well, the early on recordings were just me and my amp at home. It's about as big as my boot. Getting down what I would consider a complete song. Then from there I would send it to Paul, and I would generally write out a drum chart that, starts with intro, and by the time you get to verse, it would say, time signature, 25 seconds, whatever. So whatever I put for the verse drum beat, he'll know where the riff changes and where, his mind should be at when we get there. So with him having the music and a drum chart, within 5 minutes of us getting together, we can have a really good Pro Tools version of a demo, and it gives us something, to build on immediately, which is really cool. So from then, a good Pro Tools recording of me and Paul, I would probably do scratch vocals next if I had the lyrics. And then I would take that and I would send it to Mark, so Mark can familiarize himself with the words and where they sit in the verses and the choruses and stuff. And then after that, he would come down and do Mark's scratch vocals, every 4, 5, 6 weeks, just so every time we did it, the performance would be better. He'd be more comfortable singing the songs. And then once I had that, I would send that version to Phil and Kyle. And Phil, I would just tell him the time signature of where his lead would go, and so he could make up his part. And sometimes he would send some ideas back. Kyle would send back ideas with bass in it. So everybody was very attentive, and when they had the opportunity to work on it, they would just put something back on the recording and send it back. Everybody was in the From Hellyeah Rise recording session, mostly for photos. But at the time that everybody was there doing photos, like Phil did all his parts, Kyle did all his parts, Mark stayed longer, and I was there the whole time. So me and Mark, if anybody could get done so they can go home, we would send them home, and we would just work when they were done. Well, just like anything I've written in the past, I'm gonna bag on religion, I'm gonna bag on politics, I'm gonna write war reference songs. And I don't think I veered too far from any of that. I do dabble in spooky horror movie kind of lyrics. I like to think of them as mini screenplays, to where if I write it correctly, you can visualize it, and you don't even need to see a video, you can visualize what I'm describing. Religion hasn't changed at all. I think it's the biggest lie among humanity, for centuries, not just a couple. I mean, I've been here for a few decades, but that's been here, since the dawn of time, essentially. It's very easy to poke fun at it. It's very easy to find holes in it. It's very easy to look at the news and find priests that act inappropriately around young women and young boys, and you don't have to look far for that stuff. And these are the people you're following. I think of myself as a metal fan to this day. Every time Priest comes around with a new record, I'm like, fuck yeah, that means I get to go see him play. Sabbath, not so much anymore. Still a huge fan, they're just not putting out music and probably not playing anymore. Stuff like that. My punk influences from the 80s, be it like West Coast sassy punk like Adolescence or DI, to somebody that did what we did and kind of mixes thrash with punk like DRI. There's probably some Venom kicking around in these old bones somewhere. But I take things that I've liked over the years and try to embellish on them and present them in a way that if I know where it came from, nobody else does. Mission amplified by my ambition. Here I stand. Fuck no. Just wing it. I do gotta say, I had the time to make up probably 95% of my leads on this record, which I haven't had in decades. So it's very finished, it's very polished. Yet I still take time to just go in and dive bomb away sometimes, because some people like it that I do that, and that I used to rely on it a lot. I don't rely on it as much anymore, but it's part of my style, and I think if I took it away, I think people would miss it, so it's definitely still there. I switched guitar companies, so I was playing all my Deans on this recording, and by Deans, when I switched to Dean, I went from the Sustainer to the Sustainiac, which is essentially the same thing, just a different company. And I thought, well, I'm changing the guitar, I might as well change a piece or two in it. But yeah, I just used my touring rig, and the only pedals I used at any point were Crybaby and Overdrive. My band members, it was really important for me. I mean, I've been in this business 40 years. It was very important to me, if I'm starting over at this point in my career, to get friends. Do I know a bunch of people my age that can pull this off? Yeah, probably. Do I know a bunch of people in their 20s and 30s that can pull this off? Absolutely. But how stupid does a bunch of 50-something-year-olds look with some 28-year-old guy in the picture with them, you know? That's not a roadie. No offense to bands like that. I'm just saying I didn't want to portray anything about us like that. So it was very important for me to find friends, and probably the one I've known for the least amount of time is Kyle. I met Kyle in 15 on the Mayhem tour when he was with Hellyeah, and we hit it off immediately. So I put that in the memory bank. If I ever needed a bass player, he'd be the first one I called up. And everybody in this band was my first choice. Luckily, they said yes, and you know, we just moved on from there. So, you know, I know they're all professional. I know they all have ability. So that was an afterthought. I just wanted to have friends that would all just have a good time hanging out, be it a day off, be it backstage, be it on stage. You know, at this point in my life, I don't need any fucking drama. So that was pretty much it, you know, just friends that I knew I could count on, no drama, and, you know, good times.